Good evening, folks. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you all for coming out. It's a pleasure to see so many people out here this evening. We've been very excited about hosting
Good evening,
this meeting,
folks.
with all the discussion.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome. Thank you all for coming out. It's a pleasure to see so many people out. I don't know, that guy sounds really tall and handsome. Is that me? All right, we're good. I wake up thinking I hear myself talking sometimes. So anyway, my name is Joe Malash. I'm the superintendent here at the Rose Tree Media School District. I am thrilled to be sitting here with you this evening and to introduce you to some folks that are here with us to talk about the new full-day kindergarten and first grade center, where we are in the process, what we are intending to do, the why behind it, what brought us to where we are today. We have a pretty kind of loaded presentation that we'll spend, I'm going to say probably 25 minutes, 30 minutes or so that we'll go through. And we are figuring to be here from about 6 to 7:30 tonight. We did set parameters on the time in order for everybody to be able to get on with their lives. I know we have parents and grandparents and people that have jobs and all kinds of other things going on. So to be conscious of everyone's time. We are going to do questions and answers as we go through this evening, but we are going to do it as a moderated question and answer session. I have some folks from the district who are here who have note cards that they're going to pass out. Barbara Wilson, who does our communication and grants, Dan Arison, who's standing over there, is our Director of Student Services, and Krista Considine, who's from our Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Office. They're going to pass index cards out to you. If you have questions, please write them down. The folks will collect them as we are going through this evening, and then they will present the questions and ask them to us. All the questions that are submitted this evening, we'll provide responses to in an FAQ and post them all online, right? We figured that this would allow everybody to have the opportunity to ask the question or write down what it is that they want to know about. The folks, when the questions come in on the cards, they'll try to group them together thematically, right? What are those big questions that folks are asking, or more than one person is asking, to have them answered while we are sitting here this evening? But every question that gets submitted will receive an answer. There'll be the question and a written answer that we will post online and share through the website so that folks can see it and folks can refer back to it. This evening's presentation and the discussion is being recorded, right? It's not being live streamed, but it is being recorded. By late tomorrow afternoon, after we make sure that the technology and everything is good, the meeting will be posted on our YouTube channel. There'll be a link from our website, but you'll be able to see it on the district YouTube channel as well. That way, folks, again, can go back and look and say, this is what they talked about. This is what they said. The presentation that we will deliver will also be posted static or separate on the website as well, right? So that stuff will all be out there. This is the first of a number of community meetings that we expect we are going to have over the next few years as we go through this process and get ready to welcome children into a new building. I do want to introduce the other folks that are up here at the table with me this evening and some other district folks who are in the room. First, to your left, all the way to my right, is Jennifer Grafton, and she is from the Schrader Architectural Group. Jennifer is one of the project leads with whom we are working. Next to her is Phil Solomon. Phil Solomon is our direct contact through ICS. ICS is the organization with whom we are working that's doing the construction management, the organization, the overall big picture of what we are working on. David Schrader, who's directly next to me. David Schrader is the Schrader from the Schrader Group. He's an architect and an expert in designing schools and spaces for children, learning spaces, among some of the other work that he has done. Has done a tremendous amount of work, he and his firm, not just in Delaware County, but in Montgomery County and Bucks, Chester County as well. To my left and to your right, Dr. Vanessa Scott. Dr. Scott's in charge of our management services. She's our business administrator for the district. Next to her is Bill Doherty. Bill Doherty is our assistant superintendent. Some of you probably have known Bill. Bill at one time was the principal at the Glenwood Elementary School. He was an assistant principal at Pencrest High School. And next to him at the end of the table is Mr. Mike Nolan. Mike Nolan is the person that runs all of our facilities, the maintenance team, the custodians, the skilled tradesmen, all report up through Mike. Mike joined us last summer, and has been here in the district. And then over at the table to the far right and to Mike's left is Kim McCann. who's one of our technology experts in the district, and she is the one that's running the technology and doing the reporting for us. Also in the room is our Board of School Directors President, Dr. Teresa Knapson-Williams. Dr. Knapson-Williams is here, and Ms. Shelley Hunt, one of our board members, have joined us as well. So those, I think, are, oh, and Mike Lang. I apologize. Mike Lang from ICS. Mike is an engineer through ICS. The exact engineering, that's not my area of expertise. That's why we have Mike and the people on his team, but Mike's here with us as well. Thank you. And look, I even wrote his name down, Mike Lang, ICS. All right. So we're good? Yes, ma'am. Yes. So same thing. Comments, suggestions, questions, things that you want us to make sure that we know and hear tonight, write them down on the card. And again, in the interest of time, right? Because listen, I can talk a lot. And people, you'll see Vanessa at times will lean over and, I'm sorry? Understood. That's not the format that we're going to use tonight. And possibly at a future date, we'll look to see that we can do that. So yeah, so that's not going to be the format that we're going to follow tonight, though. I hear what you're saying, and I am happy to. So we're gonna go through. We're gonna do the presentation. We're gonna present things. Folks will write questions down. We will respond to them. But in this interest of time and being respectful of everybody that's here, that is the format that we're going to follow. I am happy if you. What yeah, what folks just folks what we're not going to do, folks, is holler back and forth to one another, though. All right, we are going to talk about it. Anybody that's in the room that wants to sit down and have conversation, please make sure that Mrs. Wilson or on your card that we get your email address, and please reach out. I am happy to have additional conversation with anybody that's here or anybody that's watching, when they watch this, when this is online. Happy to go through and do that. I hear what you're saying. A lot of times, just people coming to a microphone and lining up to speak is not always productive, right? So we want it to be a productive use of time while people are here this evening. So I appreciate your indulgence. I appreciate you bringing up that perspective. If at another time we're able to do that, we'll do something like that, but that's not going to be tonight. But I appreciate you expressing that. All right. So if you folks would start passing out the cards to make sure that everybody gets at least one card, or some people want additional ones. I know we have extras, and then we will get started with our presentation to keep us within our time frame. Here, I got it. All right. So the items that we're going to go through in the presentation this evening, the things that we're going to take a look at, the images that are up here, will follow through on this list. Our need for additional educational space. And again, the need for additional educational space, this is not a new conversation within this school district or within this area. There have been formal meetings going on about the need for space since back almost 10 years ago, 2016, 2017, is when these discussions formally originated at the board level. And the Board of School Directors, the administrative team, and the folks in the district began talking about how do we meet the needs of our continuously growing community and continue to deliver the quality of education that's expected in Rose Tree Media in an environment that supports the work that's going on. We're going to talk about K-1. Why a full day K in first grade center? What is it that we are able to do educationally in focusing on that very specific developmental stage of children? That time of children growing up is different than when children are 10 or 11 or older to go through. The guys are going to show you, David's going to go through and talk about the spaces that we have been working on and talking about what it is that we envision. We're going to talk about the property. We're going to look at an overhead map to be able to see the property about where the K-1 center is going to go. Why did we choose that piece of land? Why are we using that piece of land? What does that mean? And what does that look at for us? A concept plan, right? An overall umbrella look about what is the concept to put a building and the facilities on that property. Our timeline, what we're looking at and where we are, when do we expect that we'll be welcoming children into the classroom for the first time? And when we do welcome the children, we'll look at that first year, it'll just be full day kindergarten. And then in the second year, it'll be full day kindergarten and the first graders in there. Questions and discussion as we go through that moderated format, and then how to provide additional feedback. We're going to be using a program that's called Thought Exchange that's online that provides the opportunity for, again, for people to share perspective, to share what it is that you are thinking, to share those questions that you want to know. And not only can you do that, you can actually rate what other people are putting in terms of their ideas. There's a level of anonymity that exists because it does not come up and say, Joe Malash put this, or Vanessa Scott, or Bill Doherty. It allows you to share the idea, and then it asks you to rate you agree with or disagree with what other people are submitting. So it allows us to get a much broader perspective on feelings of folks from the community, right? In a moderated way, and in a way that just does not become the loudest or the person that posts the most, but allows everybody to be able to share their ideas. So we'll show you what that looks like at the end as well. So some demographic projections. As you all are aware, living here and being residents, our area continues to grow. We looked at as the school district, there are 600 additional tax residences in our area in the last 6 years. We are looking at, on average, growth of 100 additional residences per year, right? And when you look at the additional residences that are being built, along with those additional residences have come additional families. We see in our communities, in the borough, as you go through in Upper Providence, where there are communities and homes that are turning over, right? With families and people who have lived here, who have raised their families, and then younger families are coming in and want to raise their children here. This has been identified as an incredibly desirable place for people to live and for people to raise children. A central piece of that always is the quality of the education that children receive. So you can look at the enrollment history and the projections about where we are, what we are looking at, and why this increase has been there. Now, in 2016, 2017, when the discussions were formally originating, the discussions were about the children they expected to arrive at the doorstep. These children that were coming to the schoolhouses each day that were going to need to be educated. The discussion is no longer about those children who are going to come. It's about the children who are here, right? It's about who are we currently educating, and then the younger children, the little ones that are at home that we are already aware of are going to continue to be following them. The growth in our enrollment and where we're looking at the elementary level that's then coming into the middle school and then into the high school has all of our buildings incredibly full, packed with kids, which is a beautiful thing and a wonderful thing. But we have to be able to meet their needs. This is a much larger chart. This will be much easier to look at when you look at the presentation online. But it takes a look to see where are we, what's the projected enrollment, and this is based on a multiple level regression and analysis that combines live births, combines the trends in the community, combines the residences, and it combines, who is here. There's an agreed upon and accepted formula that is used to do this. We are not the only school district that does this. We have used Montgomery & Associates as the outside firm with whom we have worked in order to provide the demographic studies about the enrollment. And I can tell you for April of 2025, the most recent, as of right now, enrollment data we have is that there are currently 4,305 children attending school in our school district. 4,305 children who are currently in our school district, which is actually up from what the progression initially was for 24 and 25, which you can see. And again, it's small over here, but it's 4,269, right? What our enrollment is currently is already exceeding what the projection had been. We have space issues, right, across the 4 elementary schools in the district. Currently at Glenwood Elementary School, there are 4 modular classrooms, right? Modular classroom is a nice way to say a trailer that's out back in September. As soon as school ends in June, We'll start the process. There will be 2 more modular classrooms or trailers that will be placed on the Glenwood property. There are currently 4 modular classrooms behind the Rose Tree Elementary School. So in September of 2025, just a few short months from now, we will have a total of 10 modular classrooms between our 4 elementary schools. There are parking issues at just about every one of our schools, right? When you look at the parking over at Rose Tree Elementary School in Upper Providence, we look at the parking at the Media School, right, at Media Elementary School. We are a little bit better off over at Indian Lane because of the work that was done in the parking lot. We are a little bit better off over in Glenwood for the staff. None of these elementary schools, when they were designed to deliver education in the way that we currently deliver it, to have specialized services, to meet different types of needs of children who are there, to have supports for kids, to have different types of experiences for children to be able to have in school to meet everyone's needs. They never envisioned 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, longer, to have the number of people who would possibly be working in the school who would be driving to work each day. They just were not designed in that manner to meet the needs of the folks who are showing up, let alone inviting a parent or a grandparent or somebody from the outside to come up to the property to visit the school or be part of something that goes on. The way that we are currently configured and the spaces that exist within our buildings, we are not able to offer full-day kindergarten. We are one of a few districts in our county or in the Tri-County area who is not providing that opportunity and that experience for our youngest and most vulnerable learners. Again, what we ask of children, what we ask of families looks different today in 2025 than it did in 2015 or in 2000. The needs of children and how we are able to meet them as an academic institution and what that provides an expectation from the community is just different today. We want to be able to offer full-day kindergarten. What we ask our kindergarten teachers to do, and we have some incredibly dedicated and talented kindergarten teachers in a 2.5-hour program, and sometimes is honestly untenable. There's this much amount of work that's expected to be done, and there's only such a small amount of time to do it. And some of those normal developmental opportunities in structured play, in free play, and spending time in a kitchen setup or spending time in dress up that kids can do, and just enacting different things that are going on are not able to happen anywhere near as much as they should developmentally to meet the developmental needs of the children at that age. There just is not the space. One of the questions that I often get asked is why are we not just looking to put additions on each one of the schools to meet the needs? One, because of the demands with the children who are here, there is not the space on each one of the schools to be able to put on additions. And again, David and Phil, as they go through, will talk a little bit about that. What are some of the challenges? And what does it mean when you're putting an addition on a building as opposed to building a new building in terms of efficiency? What can we do with energy? What can we do with the space? How can space be tailored specifically to meet the needs of the people who are going to be in it? If we were able to put additions on the buildings, that does not change the size of what the all-purpose room or the cafeteria looks like in any of those buildings. Those of you that have children at Glenwood right now is packed with kids. It's our largest elementary school in the district. As of right now, Glenwood Elementary School has 598 children. 598 children at Glenwood Elementary School. If you've been in that cafeteria, if you've had the great opportunity to attend a concert, that space will never be adequate to meet the needs of the 600 kids and plus the adults who are there, let alone if we put additional classrooms and welcome more children into those spaces. We're just limited in what adaptability looks like in those spaces. All right, educational opportunities. So why, right? Why are we looking specifically at a full-day kindergarten and first grade center? One, we need the space, right? I mean, that was defined and evaluated and identified, again, nearly 10 years ago, right? Our school district went through a process to identify a space, the plans, and you all are probably much more aware and better aware of the stuff that's gone on in those number of years with the property in Edgemont and the development and the plans and the discussion, and that it just is not going to take place, right? We hit a threshold of, it was presented to the elected officials, a request for a waiver to rezone what that property was. That was not adopted, right? There was a lawsuit that was filed by this school district. The school district, we have extricated ourselves from the lawsuit. A determination, a discussion was had last summer of it just is not going to take place, right? We are not in a place that we can continue to do what we are doing and to go down that path to try to get a school built on that property. It just is not going to happen. And if it were to happen, none of us are going to see it, right? So we need to move on. What is our next opportunity? And if we are going to do that, where can we do it? And do we do another K-5 building? Or do we look at what the needs are of our children in the district? And do we say, all right, tabula rasa, blank slate, fresh start. What is it that we can do? And we had those discussions. And again, the unique opportunities to do a full day kindergarten and first grade center allows us to tailor very specifically to 5 and 6-year-olds. And that space looks different for 5 and 6-year-olds, again, than it does for 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds or 12-year-olds. Almost no elementary school that currently exists that was designed more than 20 years ago, and even those that have been designed as comprehensive K-5 or K-6 elementary schools, were built specifically with 5 and 6-year-olds in mind. Everything is built for the larger child, right? It just is. In order to be able to focus a building and to meet those needs, what does the classroom space look like? What do common areas look like? How does access going from one spot in the building to another? What does that look like for children? What does that specific environment? How can we decorate the building? How can we construct spaces that combine inside learning and outside learning in an environment that is controlled and is safe for these children? It allowed us to start to think about what does that mean? And then if we can pull all the kindergartners and first graders together and provide them with that common foundation, commonality of experience, commonality of different things that go on within the building, and then have them have the opportunity to go back to their neighborhood schools, again, in air quotes, their community schools for 2nd grade through 5th grade, then to reconvene in 6th grade and middle school, we believe that academically we'll be able to do a much better job of what we do for the children. And we do a really good job right now. But to improve the foundational experiences that children have and to build and initiate those relationships will be better for them. We'll get rid of the temporary modular classrooms. We'll be able to improve parking because of the change in the staff and the volume of folks that are there. The full day kindergarten, I cannot stress enough the value of the full day kindergarten. Be able to return the core and the community spaces back to what they were intended to be able to do in order to meet the needs of the people that are in the building. Again, we talked some about the advantage of the early learning center, and then the facility will benefit all of the families who have children of that age in the Rose Tree Media School District. All families who are raising their children, all families who are moving here, who are starting their families, whose children are born. Every child, every family in the district who's coming up to kindergarten and first grade will benefit from that. All of us as a community will indirectly benefit from it because of the quality of the education that we'll be able to provide to the children. All right, design aspirations.
Take that.
David Schrader.
Okay, we're going to shift the computer over here. Thank you, Dr. Malash. That was a nice setup to what a project can be. And so we want to talk about a couple of things. One is we want to talk about some of the things that Dr. Malash spoke about, which includes the changing needs of the facility. And you heard changing needs from a couple of perspectives. One certainly were the enrollment projections in the district. And the second is the needs of a K-1 group. Facilities that have taken this on, or districts that have, include Springfield, Delaware County with the Springfield Literacy Facility, Phoenixville in Chester County with the Manavon and Early Learning Center facility. That's a K-1 facility as well for the entire district. Yorkshire Elementary is in York. They happen to do that same exact thing with the K-1 population. And Springfield, Montgomery County is the Enfield Elementary School, which was early learning K-1 and 2 in that case. And what we find in each of these facilities, as well as the facilities across the United States that are trying to handle the same population, is a need for a facility that really supports the socialization of that age group, the literacy aspect, which we're trying to level set literacy for children at that age across districts, the individualized learning, play, very important to students at that age, and of course, nature, and a whole bunch of other things. But those are real focuses that we try to work through. And so what we wanted to bring to you here today were some thoughts. We're not trying to bring you a building. And then what we want to do, because we want to hear a little bit about that through some of the cards that we have over here, we want to talk a little bit about the site after that. And we made a presentation in January about the ability to use that site. That'll be the second part of this conversation. So we'll start a little bit with design aspirations and what some facilities are doing to try to accommodate those needs of that early learner age group.
Okay, we're going to show you some images from projects that we've both participated in designing and some of our counterparts and other firms have done across the country. One of the big things that we do talk about for, especially for these young learners, is giving them an opportunity to not only be educated within the four walls of their classroom, but also to be able to break out into other spaces for, pull in, push out instruction, to be able to have a place to maybe go out and play with manipulatives, like Dr. Malash talked about, being able to play dress up or, various different kinds of activities. So we try to create environments where these opportunities are directly adjacent to the classrooms. So all students have those opportunities and they're all within view of the instructors and easily monitored. And that also creates the ability to create small communities. So when you have a school of this size with these many students in it, clustering small groups of classrooms together around an open area, like you see in the center there, provides those opportunities and allows you to create communities amongst the students in smaller groups. Thanks. Okay, thanks. Another thing that we think is very important, and this goes without saying, I think for all age groups, but particularly our youngest learners, is that connection to nature. Both a visual connection to nature and a physical connection to nature, where they're not only going outside for recess, but also being able to go outside and play in the dirt and plant gardens and give these students all kinds of opportunities that isn't necessarily available at some of the elementary schools for these older kids. Other things that we like to do is have a lot of transparency. We like to try to get that furniture really small and scaled to them so that they really feel ownership of that space and they have opportunities to go out and learn at their own pace. Got it. Again, we talked about this connection to nature, but we're also talking about how the instructors can work together and team together to support the needs of the students. It's not just about one teacher with a group of 20 students. This is about a community of teachers and students working together to provide the best education possible in these spaces. We also like to inject a lot of fun into these kinds of spaces, creating opportunities in corridors and in classrooms where a student may need a private space where they can go sit and have a moment to themselves. Maybe they need to have a small place to calm down, or they need a place to focus. So we interject these kinds of opportunities throughout the school. And you can even see from the scale, these are low spaces where they're at a kid height and a kid scale. And we'll also try to put things within corridors where kids can have sensory, they can touch, they can move things around to make that entire experience moving from one space to the next part of that educational experience. And Dr. Malash also spoke about creating opportunities for artwork and graphics within the schools. And there's a lot of things that can happen along those pathways from space to space for education. We can do manipulatives, we can do activities along those, we can do graphics that include, lessons, history. And really what we're trying to do is impart the idea of learning through play throughout the facility, not just on the playgrounds and those outdoor classrooms, but throughout the entirety of the building. And finally, community spaces. We talk about community from different levels. We talk about community as in a few groups of classrooms working together to create the community amongst the students, bringing the entire student body together in spaces like a gym, having that opportunity for the different groups to interact in the library, and then of course, having spaces like a gymnasium that can support the community such as yourselves to come in and participate in activities, see a play, and see what the students are doing.
So that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the spaces you may see to support some of the things that Dr. Malash talked about. I'm going to grab yeah, I think I can get a pointer here. This is probably important to all of you. Okay, so let's talk about the site for a couple of moments here. This is Rose Tree Road. Here's 352. The Granite Run Mall sits right here. Pencrest is up here on Barron Road. And of course, Van Leer Avenue here with the residences right behind Pencrest and the adjacent property that through Middletown Township has an approval for some development as well. One of the things that is happening, and I think folks were invited to a PennDOT hearing about the development and connection of Rose Tree Road to 352, what they're attempting to do, or PennDOT in the plan, is to try to align the driveway across from Granite Run Mall with Rose Tree Road. And they've created a small jug handle that they're trying to take the bottom part of the property here with, and you'll see that in a moment. But ultimately, that plan is probably out there on the horizon, although it is in the plan to do. We all know PennDOT does not move at a rapid pace. So obviously that's something that we have to plan for as we think about development of our own property. But the Riddle property that sits right here directly adjacent to the Smedley property, directly across from Longview Park, there are several points that we typically focus on when we're looking at a site, including trying to align driveways. So we'll think about things like Longview Park's access point. We will think about how we can try to use that jug handle road that is going to be created from Rose Tree Road to directly across from Granite Run Mall. We also think about some other things that are in the works at some point in the future, one of which is an athletic plan, a master plan that's been created for the Pencrest High School back of lot. And so what they're trying to do there is to optimize how the fields are placed on the rear part of the property for Pencrest, with possibly a little bit of additional parking that sits kind of where you see the pointer here. And we have the opportunity through what we do on this piece of property to possibly connect those two in some way. So that's one of the other things that we're thinking about here as we go. Some very initial discussions with the township, and I'll get to a concept in a second, are that we try to create a loop road around the building for fire and emergency access, and that might allow us to touch the parking area for the Pencrest property as well. So little things like that are things that we're trying to align as we go through this process. The property you're looking at there, once you pull the Pencrest portion, I'm sorry, the PennDOT portion out, is approximately 13.9, 14 acres of site. The Pencrest High School property is 64 acres. And so if you put those two together, you can do the math. It's a fairly good sized property once you have it all together. These are the two properties of the entire campus shown outside of the gray. So it's the green in the middle. First of all, why is this an important property to the district? Well, they own it. And so that's a great opportunity for them to develop something that's directly behind the high school. It is zoned educational use. You may or may not know that that was approved early this year. And so the property is, just like the Pencrest High School property, an educational use. This gives us the opportunity to connect the two campuses together and potentially provide the opportunity to incorporate the athletic program that I talked about a second ago. In January, we did something called a test fit. And that is not a design. That's a test fit. The next step for us is to start to finish up the programming to match the K-1 program that the district is looking for with a total square footage. And so the idea right now is to create a two-story building somewhere on the property and to try to take into account all of the things that Dr. Malash talked about are things that we have to deal with for school districts today. And as he said, we have to deal with employee parking to support the number of students that may be in a building like this. But I'm pretty sure that you're all used to what's happening on all of the school sites throughout the region, and that is parent drop-off has increased significantly over the bus drop-off. And so you do see these lines of parents waiting to drop off and waiting to pick up. So today to try to see what a facility of 2 stories might look like placed back towards the Pencrest portion of the property, and to allow appropriate queuing lines for parent drop-off and then appropriate lines for bus drop-off. That's what you're seeing with the amount of parking provided on the site, plus the attempt to try to separate bus drop-off and parent drop-off, which we always try to do to try to avoid those two crossing on a site. We don't want the buses and the parents crossing on the site. So that was an initial test fit. It does work. The impervious coverage between the two pieces of property is pretty close to working across the board. We have to work that in with the athletic master plan to see how everything jives as things progress between those two portions of the project. So this was introduced in January. That was conceptual only as a test fit. The next steps for us are to design a building and design a site plan that then starts to go out in front of folks. And that's not what this is. And I think this has been described as only a test fit in each of the presentations that have been made about it. So schematic design is in process. That's why we shared some of the imagery that you saw to try to match some of the needs that the district talked about. In the best of all worlds, we always try to align a schedule with what we think is going to happen in a project. We go through, for those of you who have designed a house, you know at some point in time you get a floor plan and you get what the building's going to look like. That is called schematic design. That is that first portion of the work that we're involved with. The design development level is trying to integrate the building systems into that. And that's what you're seeing possibly from summertime through end of year. And then construction documents are the documents that the contractors build off of. And in this case, that's showing the end of year to beginning of 2026. We would like to try to begin to get site plans in front of the township sometime this spring. And if we do, the traditional permitting process through both the municipality and the county conservation district and NPDES approvals typically are somewhere in the neighborhood of a year. And so that's what that is showing as a process. The public school projects all have to go out for public bidding. So it means you release the documents, contractors provide bids at a certain day, and we have to break it into at least 4 different prime contracts. Those 4 prime contracts support each of the types of building that goes on in a total structure. We'd love to have those kinds of bids back sometime at the end of spring, and then hopefully beginning construction for a project like this summer of 2026 to hopefully be wrapped up summer 2028. That's the initial goals. We have some initial ideas, obviously, for how we'd like to generate the project and would like to move it through that process in a time frame something like this.
All right, so a couple of thoughts as well. First, if you have cards and you've written questions or written things down, Mr. Harrison is coming around, Mrs. Considine's coming around. They'll grab cards from you. If you're sitting directly in the center, just pass it to the row or pass it up front, just like we do in school, right? Everybody remembers being the person that got to collect the papers and hand them in, and right? So if you want to share those, and again, you don't have to have it done already. You can keep writing. And as we go through with some of the discussion, if you have an additional one, just hold it up, right? One of the folks will come around and we'll grab it from you. And if you need another note card, we do have additional note cards as well. So a lot of information. I know because I've had the opportunity to speak with some of you here this evening, and I know that some of you have taken a look at the things that are online. A lot of information, right, in the course of 30 minutes or 35 minutes to take a look at and to see. Again, everything that has been shared thus far about the project is on our website. You can find there's a direct link on the front page that says school board presentations, and then it'll take you directly to each one of the presentations that's been delivered so far. You can look at them. You can go through them to take a look and see what you think. Again, all the information from this evening will also be posted online. At each one of our work sessions, and our board of school directors operates 2 formal meetings that we have a month. The first one typically is on the second Thursday of the month, and that's a board work session. We get together here in this library beginning at 6:30 p.m. and talk about what's going to be on the agenda for action on the fourth Thursday of the month during the legislative meeting. It's a great opportunity for discussion, a great opportunity for question, and you can see the working of the board. It's an opportunity for the Board of School Directors to do their work in public, right? Their work has to be done in public. So you can see that we will have presentations at every one of our work sessions just about the status and with some updates about where we are and about what's taking place. So I encourage folks to come out. If in between meetings, if you have questions, please reach out, right? Again, if you look at the district website, my contact information is on there. You can send me an email, you can call. This is Gail Betcher, who is here in the audience watching tonight as an interested citizen. She's my administrative assistant. Gail is in her, just a little highlight, Gail is in her 42nd year of employment with the school district, which, yes, deserves a round of applause. If you reach out to Gail, if you email her or call her, Gail will make sure that you get an opportunity to speak with me or to see me, right? She manages my calendar all the time. She's fantastic with what she does. So anybody that wants to have conversation, again, I'm more than happy to have conversation with. Come into the office. If there's a group of you, I'll come out to your home if you want. We can meet someplace and have a cup of coffee. However you want to do it, I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to have a conversation about it, right? It's one of my favorite topics to go through. Mrs. Wilson, how are you feeling? You've got a couple of
Dr. Malash,
questions. I see you have them all
yeah,
spread
we
out
have-
on the
we have
table.
many cards here.
I like it.
So what I'm going to do is start with what seems to be the largest topic.
Yes.
Many questions about it, which is with busing and transportation. Folks just wanting to know, what is the plan for busing? Will there be a number of small buses? I apologize. I'm going to try to have louder volume. My voice is not good tonight. So our most common theme for the evening so far is transportation. What is happening with busing? Will these youngest students be on the buses for the longest amount of time, trying to get them to the common school?
Right.
Will there be a number of small buses for them to ride? So that sort of encompasses what most people are asking about for this first round of questions.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. So just to reiterate, so the first question is about busing and transportation. How are we going to get the children to the school? What's that going to look like? David went through and talked about different drop-off buses, different drop-off for parents. One of the things that we really are going to continue to work on is to encourage. I know. I get really worked up. Don't I? Apologies. Thanks, Kim. One of the things that we're going to continue to encourage parents to do is to have their children ride the bus, right? As David talked about, there are more children that get dropped off by cars at our schools every morning than ever before for a variety of reasons, right? We want to see kids on the bus. We're going to provide transportation to the kids as they come through. So we're going to want to see kids to ride the bus. We don't yet have a final time schedule about what time will school start, what time will school end. It will have to be on a stagger from where our other 4 elementary schools are. And right now we're having that discussion. One of the biggest challenges in school districts everywhere, it's not a Rose Tree Media, it's not a Delco, it's not a Pennsylvania, it's across the country. The biggest challenge is with transportation. And the challenge is getting enough drivers to be in buses to transport children on a daily basis. And we have a wonderful group of folks who drive our buses and bus aides who ride our buses every single day, right? Just imagine doing 4 runs in the morning or 3 runs in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, upwards of 50 kids on a bus who are energetic and expressive about what goes on, during the course of the day. So we are working on that. I don't have a time to be able to tell you about what will those bus runs look like. That is part of the discussion and one of the things we are taking a look at and certainly weighs on what will it be to get the children who are there. I know that was a big part of the discussion with the identification of the property in Edgemont for the elementary school because of the amount of time. You all know driving around here, traveling in this area is not easy on a daily basis, right? With the increased demand because of the number of places that have been built and the thriving community that we are in, there is a lot of volume of traffic, right? And the beautiful area in which we are every single day does not lend itself to almost any of these roads that are around us through the neighborhoods or even right here off the campus of Springton Lake to be expanded, right? That just, it's not how they were designed. It's not how the communities, most of the parts were developed and built. But that is a huge focus of the discussion we are having right now. More information I expect as we finalize what a daily schedule will look like. We'll be talking about that during the course of the next academic year, and then a time schedule. I'm going to expect we should have something tentative by June of 2026, and then for sure something that's final by June of 2027.
Okay. I'm hoping people can hear me a little better now that I
For me, it sounds a little bit louder, Barbara.
Okay. So our next group of questions seems to be the configuration of classes, whether the K-1 students will be grouped according to their home schools. Also asking about scheduling. Will they be on the same hours as the elementary schools? What will that typical school day look like?
Great. So a number of things. That's a full question, Barbara. It's good stuff. Thank you for putting that together. We will be engaging the professionals, right? So we'll be working with our teachers, with our school psychologists, with our occupational and physical therapists, with our school counselors and the principals, and then in discussion with the PTGs, with the parents and the families who have been involved in our schools and who will be involved in our schools to talk about what do people value, right? Where do they see for what's going to take place and what's that going to look like? I can't sit here tonight and tell you that all of the children who will ultimately attend Glenwood will only be in these 4 kindergarten classes, and all the children who attend media will only be in these 4 elementary classes. In fact, I can tell you that it will not happen that way. When we talk about opportunities and what's it look like for children to be together so that relationships can be built and can be established, we will. And we will look at that. Developmentally, with where the children are at this stage of their lives, they are able to initiate and to build relationships for the interaction that take place while they are in school and then hopefully outside of school, birthday parties, sports, church, or other type of religious organizations or communities. And they are able to transition those from year to year. The children will not be together in that same cohort of kids in each class each year, much in the same way that they are not when they travel through our regular elementary schools. But there will be discussion with that. We'll be putting together a committee. We're going to announce a committee that will involve staff members from the district and then people from the community who want to be involved. Now, it's going to be different than just asking people to volunteer because they want their voice to be heard on a committee. We're actually, when we do this, going to ask people to submit a resume and then explain what is it will they bring to the committee, right? Because we know there are a lot of folks who are going to want to be involved to talk about what does that look like on a daily basis. The school day will look in some ways similar to what a typical or traditional elementary school day looks like. Right? There'll be time that they'll be in their self-contained classroom with their teacher. There'll be time for larger group opportunities. And with the design that our team of professionals, with the experts are working on in terms of the design of the building, some community spaces that allow smaller, more intimate settings for 2, 3, 4 groups of classes to be together where they don't all have to be locked into that same group of 20 kids. There'll be lunch. There'll be art. There will be music. There will be opportunities like that during the course of the day. There'll be a cafeteria. There'll be a gymnasium. There'll be a library. So some of it will look like what school looks like. Again, in air quotes, that we all kind of look like and feel like when we think about what should a school day include. The focus, again, will be that developmental stage of 5 and 6-year-olds, about where they are. And it's a very wide continuum about where children are when they arrive to us in kindergarten and when they leave at the end of 1st grade from this school. They will have had similar experiences, but the way that they take it in, we want to make sure that everybody that's there has the opportunity to absorb it. Will it be on the same time schedule? We do not expect that it'll be on the same time schedule as the other 4 elementary schools. Right now, we are talking about what will that stagger look like. And again, transportation fits into that. Families that have children at multiple schools. I was talking to a parent earlier who right now has children at 2 levels, elementary and middle school. Next year, we'll have children at elementary, middle, and high school, right? At some point, I am sure we will have families that will have a child at the K-1 center, elementary, middle, and high school. And we have to be cognizant of that and plan for that because it will affect the folks who are here. Barbara, did I think I hit each of those pieces?
Okay, we'll move on to the next cohort, which is about full-day kindergarten in general.
Yes.
Why full-day kindergarten? is it possible for the district to implement full-day kindergarten without this early learning center? And do you intend to consider adding pre-K 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to the early learning center at some point?
With pre-K 3 and pre-K 4? So why full day kindergarten? Developmentally, I think we owe it to the children, and I think we owe it to our community to be able to do the best that we possibly can for the kids who arrive each and every day at the schoolhouse door. You know, I've been here for 22 months, I think now. And again, I wake up each morning with a smile. I get in my car and I show up here each day with a smile because the intensity and the focus of the people that I have talked to in the last 22 months who make up our community, that have children in the district, that have had children in the district, that will have children who will be attending the district, there's a common theme, right? People demand the best. They want the best. They demand the best for the kids who are here. They demand the best for the community and for what it represents. There's a feeling and an understanding. And again, I've talked with folks, you know, who graduated from Penncrest in the original class, right? I've talked with folks who were at Penncrest when it opened in 1956, and the people who have graduated from Media High School and what that looked like and felt like for them. And again, the message different today in 2025 is in the delivery of the education, but the feeling of what people want is the same. We are asking our kindergarten teachers to take on an incredibly enormous lift of what we want them to do on a daily basis in a 2.5-hour program. The developmental needs in terms of what children are exposed to from birth to 5 years old looks different and feels different today, more different in the last 25 years than it probably did in the 25 or 50 years previous to that, right? There was more consistency about what growing up looked like and felt like in the decades of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s than there has been from the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. There's just been an acceleration about what does it look like for children, and then what are we asking them to do in school afterwards? What are the opportunities for which we are preparing them when they exit our school system? Right? One of the things that I have to remind myself, and I remind folks all the time, is we need to welcome the children that are arriving at the doors. Not what it looked like when I entered kindergarten in the early 1970s, or not what it looked like when my kids entered kindergarten in the early 2000s. Right? We have to prepare and provide an environment that meets the needs of the world these children are living in, and then ostensibly gets them when they're going to graduate from high school in 2000 or in 12 years later, 13 years later, that they are ready to go into the world that they are entering. Again, not the world that I entered, right? Not the world that we came out and went into. Is it possible to do full-day kindergarten without this new school? It is not possible to do full-day kindergarten in our school district without building a new school, right? The discussion, and if you go back 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I don't remember whether it was 5 years ago, 6 years, or whether it was 19 or 20, when the discussion about opening the new school in Edgemont as a K-5 elementary school, it was decided in the discussions around that time that the discussion about full-day kindergarten, because that was a demand back then, was going to be tabled until 2025 or 2026 to then get the school open, because the expectation back then was the new school in Edgemont would have been open and children would have been occupying that. And then to take a look at it and say, yes, we can do full-day kindergarten, or this is what needs to be done. With that school not opening, there is no way to do full-day kindergarten in our district without opening an additional school. Just not possible. Will we add pre-K 3 and pre-K 4? I will tell you, as an educator, I would love to run a pre-K program. Do I think that we are going to do that? I don't think that in my tenure in this district that I will ever see that here. I just don't know that the financial opportunity is going to exist, right? Is that wonderful? It's fantastic, right? The earlier that we can have our children as part of the school district, because we can look at over time, longitudinally, we can look at over time and know that the longer the children spend in our school district, the more successful they are when they graduate from high school, the more opportunities they have. We can show that, right? So when people say, well, you know, what's the best I can do for my kid? Start them here, right? Start them here in kindergarten. If I think we can do it in 3 and 4-year-olds, do I think that's going to happen? I don't think that's going to be a physical or financial reality in a large scale in our school district anytime that I'm ever going to see. Now, as part of what's gone on over the last 5 months, Ms. Betcher set up for me. I went out and I've met with all the directors of all the preschool programs that feed children into our school district to have discussions about what does the program look like there. Some of them do half-day kindergarten right now, some do full day, and they all do pre-K programs. We've talked about the pre-K program. One of the things that we will look to continue to do over the next few years before this school opens, and then once it does open, is to continue to nurture the relationship that the school district has with the preschool programs in our area. We are serving the same community. And to a person, each one of those directors had that same perspective of, if we can be in better communication, if we can share ideas, share information, and share thoughts, we can better serve the children that are coming.
Okay. Next, we have several questions related to cost and funding for the project. We also have a couple of questions about what is happening with the Edgemont property, if you could go over that one more time. Also, how many additional staff are anticipated to be employed with the new school?
All right, so just do the first part for me, Barbara, again, cost
Cost and funding, yes.
and the funding.
Yes.
So the initial look that we had from our team of professionals had us between $81 and $82 million for around 120,000 square feet of a school. Again, part of the plan, as we have been working on this, since the presentation was delivered in January, is to then refine what that discussion looks like. What's the programmatic offering going to look like in the building? How many children are we expecting to serve? How many classes are we expecting to be there? What does that look like? I would expect that by the work session in June, we'll probably have a more focused number of square feet or total number of square feet and a more focused dollar amount that's there. May go up a little bit, may go down a little bit. I'm going to guess probably go up a little bit, right? That's there, especially, as we look at what the reality is in the perspective of contingencies, right? And what do we plan for? Because that all has to be built in. Remember, we are going to look at a number. We looked at a number, this winter of 81, I think it was 81 and a half days. That's right? 81.5 that we looked at. And just in the 60 or 70 days since we had that discussion, there's been a change in what does it look like. So the projection is when we go out to bid, or the expectation to go out to bid next spring, sometime in the spring of 26, and then the work actually to get done, is to try to have an idea about what do we build in? What's what are additional costs that may come along with that? So we want to be able to continue to refine that and to look at that. And we'll present that publicly, right? That's the number where we are right now. How will we finance that? We will have to bond out additional monies, right? The district will look to sell bonds to borrow those funds. The Rose Tree Media School District has been incredibly fiscally responsible for decades in terms of money that they use, money that is borrowed, and then the work that is done with that money, right? We will be retiring the debt that we have that exists in the next couple of years. We work with a set of financial planners to come in and to make recommendation about, if you want to borrow X number of dollars, this is how we recommend that you do it, and this is what it will cost. If you want to borrow this amount of dollars, this is how we recommend that you will do it. On May the 8th, when we have our work session in here, and again, we always like having people that come out, we'll have our financial planners will be out, Barbara, and everybody. I know, Barbara, I keep looking at you. You're like, it's not my question. I'm just repeating it. The financial planners will be here, and we will talk about, the cost of a new school and additional work that needs to be done in the district, right? This is an ongoing piece. It's just like in our homes, right? I've replaced, my wife and I have been in our house more than 30 years. We've replaced the roof twice now, right? So we've been in there. We replaced the hot water heaters twice since we've been there. Twice since we've been there. I will tell you, the first time, I wish we had done it 2 days before we did it, and I would have had less water all over the house. But that's an ongoing thing in the school district as well, right? So the financial planners will be here on May the 8th. That will be broadcast. It'll be online. You'll be able to watch it, and you can see what that discussion looks like. So that'll be a piece of it. The Edgemont property, the property that we own out in Edgemont, is currently listed for sale. Joe Patty is the realtor. that is handling the listing. I believe he is with Frontier right now, is the realty group that he is with, but it's listed, it's out there. I know that he has received at least one offer. I know that there've been a number of other folks. We've had some folks that have reached out to us that we put in touch with Joe. So the property is for sale. Once we get finalized with the buyer and go through all the contractual stuff that's there, there is court action that has to take place to allow us to sell the property, but we are going through the process of selling the property and being no longer owning property in Edgemont. And a little side note, which I learned a year and a half ago, the municipal building in Edgemont used to be a school, and it was a school that fed into the Rose Tree Media School District at one time, and the district sold it to Edgemont Township. Fun fact for somebody. And then for Barb, I think the final piece was additional staff. For additional staff, we know that we will have to hire additional staff. We will finalize what does that look like over the course of the next year or so as we finalize that programming that's there. We know that our first grade teachers will go over from the 4 elementary schools. We know the kindergarten positions that we have will go over from the 4 elementary schools. Going from a partial day kindergarten program or a half day program to a full day, we know we'll have to hire additional kindergarten teachers. There will be special ed teachers. We will look at what do those phys ed, art, music, that kind of thing. What does that look like in terms of what's there? But that discussion will be ongoing. But yes, there will definitely be additional staff that we'll hire.
Okay, I just want to note that it's a little bit after 7 o'clock, so we have about 30 more minutes for Q&A.
Thank you.
Our next sort of grouping of questions has to do with staff. Are the teachers happy about this development and this plan? Also staffing with our transportation department. Will the bus drivers still have enough hours to receive benefits if there are fewer runs with, a full day kindergarten as opposed to AM and PM? And could there be partnerships between Pencrest and the Early Learning Center? This person says, I've seen successful programs like this.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Are staff happy? I believe they are. I have not heard from a staff member who is not happy about the concept of a full day K and first grade center. There have been questions about it. There have been questions about why. We have not had a full-on meeting with instructional staff from across the district and talked about it as a large group. We have shared a lot of information, as milestones have been reached and as presentations have been delivered publicly and as we've talked about it. We have pushed information out to the staff to make sure that they are kept in the loop. I expect that there will be, again, as we formulate a formal committee and get staff that are directly involved, that there'll be a lot more discussion about what that looks like. But I believe that staff are happy. From what I've heard and from the anecdotal pieces from the principals, from the folks in the building, in talking with professional association folks, that they are happy about that. I don't anticipate that that there would be a decrease in hours for our transportation staffing for bus drivers or bus aides. I don't anticipate that at all as what we're looking at right now. Again, some of that is going to be speculative until we finalize what the daily schedule looks like and how those runs will be built in, right? What does that look like on an everyday basis? So as of right now, that certainly is not the anticipation. And then are there partnerships that we anticipate with Pencrest High School? We are. Listen, one of the really attractive pieces about this school being built adjacent to where Pencrest is to be able to have a connection that exists between the high school and the early childhood center. We have the Little Lions program that it's operated at Pencrest High School for a long time. Some of you have had children that have gone through that, where we have preschool age children, that work with our high school students, who are in a, for lack of a better description, a teacher prep type program to come over. We see some very natural interactions and things to be able to take place between the high school and the early, and the full day kindergarten and first grade center. Students who are interested in going into education to be able to volunteer. Some natural tie-ins between activities that go on at the high school and the early learning center with what's there. one of the things that we've talked about in the design of the property on the outside are those, external learning spaces. What does it look like in nature? And that concept of being able to have a garden, that exists, and how can we work on that together? Pencrest High School has, shown themselves as a school community for decades to be incredibly successful in earth and environmental science, right? So again, some natural outdoor classroom opportunities and things that we expect. I know that in talking to Mr. Roth, some of the opportunities between different clubs, other things that are going on. I met with a world language teacher from the high school last week who said that she had been talking with her peers about it. And is there some way that the AP students and advanced language students could come down to the early childhood building to be able to work with the kids and introduce them to French and to Spanish and to Chinese, and to be able to have those discussions? There are cultural things that can tie in. So yes, some very natural tie-ins that we would expect would exist. David alluded to one of the things that we're looking at. The district has engaged with the group ELA Sports to take a look and develop a master plan for our athletic fields. And how can we get the best out of them? How can we provide the best for the kids? They are incredibly heavily used by our students. They're incredibly heavily used by our community organizations. Again, it's a highlight. One of the great things that exists here. One of the things is there is never enough parking for athletic events at the high school. So the concept, one of the things that was introduced in that master plan for the fields, is the possibility of a parking lot. Is there a way that we can connect, the two properties directly together, with hard surfaces? And what does that open up, in terms of opportunity? Thanks, Barbara. I know somebody had their hand up. If you have a question, Barbara, or if Ms. Considine, if somebody had their hand, I'm not sure. I know there you go. Would you make sure he's got a card just so we can get, I don't want to lose what he's got. Thanks, Krista. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, the next grouping of questions is environmental related. We have a couple of people with concerns about construction, noise pollution, air pollution. Will this affect my well water? We also have a couple of concerns about how many trees will be taken out for this project. Will things be left for those outdoor educational expanses for the children to use? Areas for gardens with fencing and water availability for the children to learn about those types of things as well. I think, and also traffic concerns in the environment.
Great, Barbara. I'm gonna talk about one very small piece of that, because most of it is outside the realm of what my expertise and background is. But as I said before about gardens, yes, we intend to have gardens and that outdoor learning to be a part of what goes on for the kids in the school, and to be able to have that connection with our students at the high school. I'm gonna have David and/or Phil, kind of go through and talk a little bit about some of the other areas, and then we'll talk a little bit about traffic towards the end as well.
Okay, well, one of the questions, I tried to write them down as you went. Thank you for that. Noise pollution and construction. Well, construction is messy. It's something that we deal with on a regular basis. This piece of property is a beautiful piece of property, like the Pencrest High School property behind. That project was built it was added to back in 1997, and it's undergone other construction over time as well. This project at 120-ish thousand square feet is going to have nowhere near the impact of the Granite Run Mall construction that you've seen across 352. And obviously at some point in time, we will also have the PennDOT roadway realignment from Rose Tree Road to directly across from Granite Run Mall. So those are things that you will see as time goes on. We deal with construction in the area, unfortunately. One of the good things is, and Phil will probably talk briefly about this from a construction management perspective, but you will have construction managers on the site who will be controlling what's going on in the site. Things like dust control and all of those things will become very important as the construction process goes on. Well water generally is not affected. We typically are just constructing 3 feet into the ground because that's what our foundations are doing. We'll see what the HVAC system choice is as time goes on and whether that has any effect. But well water generally is not affected by projects of this type, and certainly would not be any further than what has gone on at the Granite Run Mall at this point. There is some intent to remove some of the vegetation, and there is a tree line that would probably be taken down as part of the construction project. I'm only looking at my aerial plan in front of me to do that. But the township has a pretty meticulous replacement policy of trees. And so while they would be young trees as they are put onto the property, they'll certainly grow over time to be the trees that you see out there today. Certainly. I'm going to go back a couple more here. So the tree line that I think I'm talking about, you can see there's low vegetation right here. And then there was a corner of another property at one point that had a tree line that ran like that. So that is an existing tree line that's there today. The other two topics that we'll talk about, traffic is being studied. Traffic was studied for the property directly adjacent to the Riddle property, just to the west. And there's a traffic study out there for that and how that will affect the overall property. We will also be required to add to that traffic study as well. So that information, as the project generates, will be available for everybody's use as well. And it's going to inform the township as well as PennDOT on how all of the traffic is handled out there. The other topic was a little bit less pertinent to noise pollution, construction, and traffic, and that was the opportunity for outdoor use. And I think Dr. Malash really spoke to the intent to try to create a connection with nature for the students. Jennifer tried to show you some slides of how we try to relate the classroom spaces or the learning spaces indoor and outdoor, and it would be part of this design project as well. So that'll be a big part of whatever we design. I should probably hand it over for the construction side.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of these concerns are not determined at this point. I mean, you're a schematic design. So what happens is the township goes through a land development process. So they try to moderate all of these issues and come up with good solutions that work for the surrounding community, work for the district, work for all the interested parties. So that process, as David spoke about earlier, is about a year-long process. So each one of these things will be studied in detail, and there'll be, hearings with the township along the ways. That feedback will come to us to help incorporate into the design. So the finalized design will be in conjunction with this land development process along the way. So not a lot of answers today, but that's what the township does in any construction project of this scale. Well, every environmental concern is also moderated through the land development process. So if there is any endangered species or anything like that, you do have to work around that or work with that. At this point, we're not aware of anything, but all those environmental studies will be done as part of land development as well.
Well, and at Pennsylvania, the PINDY test was already done for the site, and there are at this point there are no natural occurrences on the site of any endangered species. So those are so far on the property. It's nothing that we have to worry about for the moment.
You guys. Mrs. Wilson, do you have some more for us?
I do. We have some questions about what the effects of the proposed tariffs will be on this construction, cost-wise and that sort of thing, if there's a extrapolation on that. We also have a question about why should older residents have to pay for the K-1 center when it benefits only younger families?
All right. So, Mr. Wilson, so proposed tariffs, what's that impact going to be? And again, it's right now, it's very speculative, right? I mean, it's the hard part right now. We try to shake the crystal ball and take a look at it and see, how much clarity can we get out of it? What will the tariffs be? Will the tariffs last? What will the impact be? Will it impact public schools? All of those different types of things. Some of that is why, again, Phil and David and their teams, the engineers, the groups, the people that are working in the industry day in and day out are continuing to take a look at what is it that we want to design and where are we with it. At some point, there has to be a revised or a final number that's put forward. So we can talk about what is it that we have to borrow, right? Where are we? And what's the best guess estimate that we can get to, right? There are professional and industry standards that are used, right? It's the same thing as when contractors come through. We're doing projects right now. If you rode by around the school, over by the cafeteria, we have a project going on here to expand the cafeteria because of how crowded and how busy it is here at Springton Lake. When the teams bid those projects or bid that project, or when they bid the HVAC that's getting ready to be installed at Rose Tree Elementary School and at Glenwood, they bid those projects before the tariffs went into effect. They can't come back to us and say, Joe, I'm sorry, we're not doing the job. You're gonna have to pay us, so it's gotta be best case scenario in terms of what they look at and where they are. And then why should older residents have to pay to go through? Listen, I have a sensibility and a feeling for that, right? I want everybody to feel that they are benefiting from what is happening within the school district, right? Quality schools, quality education benefit communities, right? It benefits the value of homes. The value of homes, I am amazed at the value of homes and what homes are selling for. Some of the folks that I work with on a daily basis that live in the borough and talking about what twin homes are selling for. Just the reality of what people want to be able to spend to move in here to raise their families. There's a lot that goes into that. A part of that is the community. A part of that is the feel of what's it mean to live in media, right? There's a reason. The catchphrase, everybody's hometown, is not just words, right? There's a reason that people want to be here. The school district is a large part of what goes on. The way that schools are funded in the Commonwealth is through property tax, right? I have regular conversations with our legislators. There is definitely a feel and a compassion, for folks who are out there, especially folks who are on fixed income. Listen, family members who are living in the same situation with what that looks like and with what that feels like, and what that means. We are always going to advocate, for all of our residents. We are going to be good fiscal stewards of the money that we ask for and the way that we spend it, and make sure that people benefit from what goes on. Everybody has to benefit. Schools are not just an endeavor, in the Commonwealth or in the United States that benefit very specific individuals. They are a community sense, right? It goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. I will tell you, it's one of the greatest foundational pieces that I see in our country is what public education provides, and what we show in terms of how we value the most vulnerable, which are our children, and also the most valuable part of our community, who are our children, right? It's that same group of people. So I know that probably doesn't answer because it's not going to take any money off anybody's tax bill. But listen, I'm happy to join any of you in talking to the legislators about how it's funded.
Okay.
Mrs. Wilson?
Next round regarding questions about kindergarten itself.
Kindergarten itself, yes, ma'am.
Is full-day kindergarten an educational requirement? What percentage of students eligible for kindergarten do not enroll in kindergarten? And how does that change the number of students in first grade?
Barbara, just repeat for me the second part about percentage of students.
Yes. What percentage of students eligible for kindergarten do not enroll in kindergarten? How does that change the number of students in first grade?
How does that change the number of students in first grade? Okay. All right. So let me go through. Is full day kindergarten a requirement? It is not a requirement. It is not a requirement by the state or by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's not codified that we have to have full day kindergarten. We believe, and this comes into the piece about local control, right? Why do we have individual board of school directors in every one of our communities that guide the operation of the school districts? It's the concept of local control, right? It's that ideal that goes back in the hundreds of years for what public education looks like. It's for each community to make that determination of what do we value and what is it that we want to provide for our children. Do we want to provide full day kindergarten? Do we want to provide football? Do we want to provide art? Do we want to provide music? Do we want to provide these other opportunities that we believe are part of a comprehensive and well-rounded and meaningful education, again, for our children? It's one of those questions that comes in. Our community, our board of school directors, the administrative recommendation, the discussions that have gone on, we believe that full day kindergarten is the best, the best that we can possibly do for our children and the right thing to do educationally for our children and for our community. Is it required by the state? It is not. What percentage of students who are eligible enroll or don't enroll in kindergarten? We typically pick up anywhere from 20, probably a little over almost 25% to a little over 30% increase in our first grade enrollment compared to our kindergarten enrollment. There are definitely families, and I will tell you that I've heard from families already because the notifications just went out about whether or not children, in the little lottery that goes on in each of the schools have been assigned to AM kindergarten or PM kindergarten, because there is a limit on what it looks like for opportunities for families on the outside for their children, either for care or for additional academic programs. So that fluctuates and will continue to fluctuate as we get up to the opening of school. But between 25 and a little over almost to a third increase between kindergarten and first grade enrollment in our district.
Okay, we are at about the last 10 minutes of this session. Another set of questions came up about what are best practices for building school and family community. What best practices for building school and family community have you learned from other districts that have pulled K-1 out of existing elementary schools? In particular, this person asking the question is concerned about being able to sustain PTGs across all of the schools if a school like this is configured.
Thank you, Barbara. So best practices we've talked to other folks about when kindergarten, first grade, or there's no early learning center about building community for families. How do you keep people that are involved? So we've had some discussion about that. I've had some discussion with the PTGs, with some of the people that are involved at the elementary schools. In one sense, I think this will help to strengthen the connection and the relationship, right? I think that there will be a natural course of people who get themselves connected in kindergarten and first grade. And because there is going to be a regular transition, that there's going to have to be a connection between the 4 elementary schools, their existing PTGs, and what goes on in the K-1 center. It becomes a natural pipeline for what goes on. Not only a natural pipeline, but now you've got people who are cross-pollinated that have been together, just like our children in kindergarten and first grade, that have gone out to each of the elementaries. So when they're talking about doing an activity or bringing people together or something that will benefit children or bringing in a speaker, there's a more natural lock that goes in among those 5 schools together. We have to be purposeful about it. We have to plan for it. It has to be involved in terms of what we go on and part of the discussions that take place as we go through these next couple of years of planning, because it's not just about the academic program. I feel really confident in what we're going to offer academically and what the day is going to look like for our children. I feel very excited about what's it going to look like for our families. Because again, if we can hook and engage the families, and that starts with, you heard me say a little while ago about being better connected and sharing information, ideas, and activities with the preschool providers that are in our area, it becomes that natural cohort of people that are traveling through together. Again, our responsibility as a public school district is to serve the needs of the community. We don't believe that that just is the 5-year-olds to 21-year-olds who are here from different programs that are attending our schools on a daily basis. Our community is much larger. One of the greatest feels and the greatest impacts that I've ever had professionally to get a sense about what community means around here, honestly, was in October of 2023. And I had lunch over at the Country Deli with a group of folks. E.J. Curran, who's a municipal judge and a graduate from the high school, and Bill Kaufman, Mr. Kaufman, Coach Kaufman, brought together a group of about 15 people. And they ranged in age from their early 60s to their mid-90s so that they could talk about why education in this school district was important to them, what it meant to them as employees and as parents and as great-grandparents. of the children who were coming through here. And what could they do? How could they become involved? And then I had better make sure that I learned and got to know people from all of the communities who make up this school district. And it's not just the parents, it's everybody that's involved.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barb.
We are down to our last question because we're at about 5 minutes before we wrap up.
Thank you.
We have a question about the transition from going to our traditional K through 5 model to the K-1 center and then 2 through 5 model. What has the teacher involvement been in preparing for that transition? How will you prepare the students and the families for that transition? A little finer point question, what is the goal class size for this situation? And
Say it again,
the
class.
goal class size, like
Goal
how,
class size.
what's your goal for the class size? And how are you planning to choose a name for the new school?
We'll be talking about class size in a minute. All right. All right. So what are we doing in terms of talking about transition and preparing the children for the transition? Definitely a big piece of what we will be working through. Has not been a big piece of talking about it other than identifying that that is one of the things that has to be attended to, right? There is not a piece right now to prepare children for transition, right? So that first year, and as David showed in his slide, ideally we are welcoming our kindergartners, first cohort of full day kindergartners in September of 2028, right? That's as we look for them to come through. And we will start just with kindergarten. We are not going to have the children that attend kindergarten in our 4 elementaries, then leave to go to first grade in that building and then return. So we'll do kindergarten and then kindergarten and first grade in that second year. Part of the initial discussions will be developed with the curriculum because it will be not just curricular, because we will talk about transition. A lot of what goes on in our schools is preparing kids to transition from one grade level to a next, whether it's a half-day kindergarten program to first grade, first to second, second to third, fifth grade to come over here to the middle school, eighth grade to go over to Pencrest, to the high school, right? It's a natural occurrence of what goes on. There's an expectation professionally that folks have that they're going to be a part of that discussion and being ready for it. We have time to work ourselves into that. Parents will have to be involved and it'll be a regular part of what goes on. There's going to be an expectation so that they can see, you know, where the children are going to be and what that's going to look like. What will we do? What will we ask parents to do? What will we do together in order to make that happen? I'm going to have Mr. Doherty, our assistant superintendent, just talk a little bit about class size. Class sizes are a range, right? We look at a range. There is not a perfect number. There is a range that we look at. So Bill, will you talk a little bit just about class size?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So one of the things that was unique when I got here, I've been in the district since 2006. And when I came to the district, I was appointed as principal of Glenwood Elementary School. And one of the things that was unique to this particular district was the small class sizes that we tried to maintain over the years. Despite the fact that our official policy, again, it's a guideline, a range, we try to be around 25 per class. However, what's different here in our elementary schools, in kindergarten, we try to keep the number to 18, and first and second grade, 21, and then grades 3, 4, and 5, 25. And we've really worked hard to maintain that over the years. There are times where we've been slightly over that. Right now, I'm sure there's a few classes that are slightly over that, right? Because we are extremely crowded. But one of the things that, again, as a school district that we value is in those early years having just slightly smaller numbers.
Thank you, Bill. Barbara, were those the pieces?
And how are we going to name the school?
How are we going to name the school? We will definitely have to name the school. We have not come up with the process about what that will look like, but it will have a name. We will talk about that publicly. We'll look through it, introduce it. I'm assuming probably as early as next fall to talk about what that process will look like. I've had a lot of suggestions from a lot of folks about possibility of names, and we will talk about what that process will look like. I'm going to ask Phil Solomon to take us into the next couple of slides, because I do want to be able to show this up here about how can people share a different additional perspective and additional thoughts. And then Barbara, I will close us up in a few minutes.
Great, thank you. Just I know a lot of conversation wants to happen, but there's really no way to have all those conversations in open forum. What we do use is we use a program called Thought Exchange. So we have 2 questions. You can write as much as you want. What happens is that thought exchange will then be it will be distilled into what the common themes are, will be fed back to the board, decision makers, just what the community is thinking about. So the 2 questions are really just what questions do you have about the plan? So there's obviously a lot of questions, and I think we're going to take all the cards and answer those on a frequently asked questions page to start with. But in addition to that, I'm sure there's a lot more questions out there. This will be open for a couple weeks, so not just the people who attended tonight, but also people who watch online or grab the presentation or however they get their information will also be able to participate. In addition, what advice do you have for the school board and district administration as they develop the K-1 center? So these 2 questions, what you'll see is you could take it right now if you'd like. You can come back to this later when it gets posted. But if you use this QR code, it will go into a survey. You can also, if you want to write more and you like to write on a computer, there's also a web link. So either way, this information all gets aggregated. All of it will be aggregated, and then it's not me who aggregates it. What happens is the AI tools within the software essentially come up with summaries and key points, and those will be fed back for review by the board and administration and everyone else. So I believe this will be open for 2 weeks, so you can come back to it, you can add to it until the survey is closed.
That's great. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, through May 16th, I believe, right? We're looking at that Friday probably that'll stay open. Mrs. Wilson will push it out through our social media. It'll be on our website. So you can tell folks if they want to fill it out. There'll be a link. There'll be a QR code, different ways that you can access it to go through. If you have trouble with it, again, send me an email. Let me know, and I'll make sure you get the link to it so that you can get into it. I want to thank the folks that have been with us this evening to share. Mike Lang, Jen Grafton, Phil Solomon, David Schrader, Vanessa Scott, Bill Doherty, Mike Nolan, Kim McCann, Krista Considine, Dan Arison, and Barbara Wilson from the school district, our Board of School Directors members, Dr. Teresa Napson-Williams, who is our board president, Mr. Ken Dinitz, who's our board vice president, and Ms. Shelley Hunt, one of our board members who have been here. Thank you all for coming out. I know it's a lot in 90 minutes to get through. Oh, thank you. Listen, if you clap, I'm just going to continue to talk. Thank you for coming out. I hope you all wrote down on your cards. If not, please email or call, right? Gail will set you up with time with me to talk. I'm happy to spend time with any of you all. First of many discussions, right? This is ongoing. Nothing's going to be decided in a single night about what this looks like. As we move forward, we want you to be involved. Be safe going home.